I live by this saying is, and I'm going to be teaching this to students. I said, we listen, but do we really hear?
Mm-hmm.
We look, but do we really see?
Mm.
And an artist does not just look or listen. They see and they hear.
Mm.
And that's the difference.
Hi, I'm Erik Weir, and thank you for joining me for another episode of Stuttering Your Way to Success. Today, my guest is Bert Hess. Great having you on, Bert.
Thank you.
So Bert is an artist. He's a filmmaker. He is actually, I think you might call yourself a teacher, professor at the Winthrop University Film School. What's going on at film school?
Well, I've always been interested in film, and I've made several films, and I run a company called Studio South, which is in the film business. And, you know, at my age, I'm sort of looking like, you know, what's my legacy now? And I don't necessarily want some of the horror movies that I've done to be my legacy with my children or posterity, even though they were nice films and well received. So I'm talking with Winthrop University about developing an accredited film school on their campus. There are no accredited film schools in the state of South Carolina.
Wow.
And so whoever gets there first is going to have a lot easier road with the legislators and the money and the donors than someone who tries to then jump on the second cab. You know.
That's right. That's right.
So
wow, that's exciting. That's exciting.
It is. It's exciting because you're talking to young people, which not in this case, Erik, but in most cases, I like to deal with younger people. Because it's the older people that, you know, they complain a lot about their health.
Nothing but trouble.
I know. So it's fun dealing with younger kids. They got the bright eyes, but you have to bring them down to reality too, that you know, life is tough and you're not going to get discovered on your couch, you know. So I'm looking forward to having one foot continued in the industry because we have several film projects, and one foot in academia that can show them what the real world is like.
Right, film projects. So what are you working on now?
We've got several projects. One is called The Letter. As I think you know, I started out in the horror business. And I promised my wife, because when her eyes rolled back, you know, when I said I want to be in the movie industry around 25 years ago, she goes, okay, I will let you be in the film industry under one condition. You don't do anything that embarrasses the family name. I go, I would never do that. So I started out with a movie called Cold Storage, about a hermit who picks up a dead body and puts it in the freezer, and she goes, "You're pushing it out
of the gate."
I got. It's a love story. Come on, how could you know?
Of course it is. Yeah, it was apparent.
But it was very successful for Lionsgate, and they loved it. And then they started asking for more gore and stuff that I knew was going to get me in trouble with my wife. So I said, "Guys, I'm out of the horror movie business." Then did some documentaries, which are really nice. So But now we're really doing. I really would like to do some films that I think have some value to them long run. And I know you have been very active in that kind of film and industry. And as we know, you know, film is the most successful way to motivate someone, inspire someone, change someone's behavior. So we have a project called The Letter, based on a true story about the shootings in Charleston, South Carolina, when a white supremacist walked in and basically murdered 9 African-American Bible study you know, students. And, you know, the thing is, at that period of time, there was a lot of racial tension, which there is now, but it was really building to a big crescendo to the point where if a black person was roughed up by a white person or anything happened, then, you know, bricks would be thrown through glass windows and fires would be started. And you know, there was a lot of anger, and there was, you know, a lot of righteous anger, I think, also about what was going on. Well, here you have Charleston, South Carolina, the hub of slavery, basically, was a major slave port. 9 black Sunday school people are executed in a church by a white supremacist. And what happened in Charleston? Nothing. There was not one brick thrown through a window,
Wow.
not one fire started. It was because of a minister named Anthony Thompson, who we're basing our movie on. He convinced people that forgiveness was a way to move forward.
Wow.
And his wife, Myra Thompson, was actually teaching that Sunday school class that Wednesday night, and she had 8 bullets in her. And so it's a great story about forgiveness, about love, but it's about really a letter that he wrote. The murderer took him 3 years to write this letter.
Wow.
It's an 11-page letter, and it lays out everything that we want laid out in this movie about that event. He forgives the murderer. He doesn't forget what happened. But he said, when I asked Anthony, I said, why did you write this letter? He said it was for me. It wasn't for the person.
Right.
And he doesn't even think that the murderer has actually read the letter, because he's tried to reach out to him several times, and the murderer hasn't responded at all. But he says letter writing is a cathartic experience for the letter writer,
Right.
not necessarily for the person who's reading it.
The recipient, right? The
Yeah,
reader of the letter.
so.
Wow, that's super powerful.
Yeah, it really is. And we're trying to get, we're trying to start more of a groundswell for getting back to letter writing, to actually writing a note. You know, right now we get on our computer and we send somebody an emoji. Hey, Eric, you know, thumbs up. You know, takes me 2 seconds to send it, right?
Right.
You know, I mean, we've gone from emails
Right.
to, you know, emojis.
Right. That's true.
And so,
That's
you know,
true.
letter writing is something that causes you to think, causes you to organize your thoughts. It shows the person who receives that letter or that note that you actually took some time and thought
Sure.
about it,
Right.
put it in an envelope, stamped it, went to a mailbox, mailed it, you know, so it's a lot more of a commitment to communicate with another human being than just, you know, sending someone a text or an emoji. And so,
That's
yeah.
fantastic. Well, thank you for that. You're a man of many talents. Tell me about your involvement with the U.S. National Whitewater Center. That seems like, honey, I've got another idea, right?
Oh yeah, this was a
this
real
is not
good one.
film. This is.
I know, this is even
and
better.
We're like landlocked too, right?
Right, this is even better.
Yeah, sure.
So I was one of the founders of the U.S. National Whitewater Center, which is in Charlotte, North Carolina.
Why not? Sure.
Why not Charlotte?
There's like, is there a pond in Charlotte
Yeah,
somewhere?
I know there's a big pond.
Yeah.
Well, we were told by people that we were pitching it to, they said, well, you know, we already have Carowinds.
Right.
And it was like, well, this is not like the lazy river ride where you sit in the inner tube with your drink that has a little umbrella in it.
Right.
This is a facility that before you are allowed to enter, you sign a waiver that if you die out there, you can't sue us.
You can't sue us for that, right?
And so they go, oh, okay, well, that's pretty extreme. I go, yeah, it is. But we got laughed out of every corporate boardroom. You know, they were like, oh, what are you guys,
It's hard not to
smoking
laugh
something?
now, and it's successful. I mean,
Yeah, what are you
can't
guys,
even
what are you
imagine.
guys, smoking
Right,
something?
right.
Why do you want to do it? It wasn't football, it wasn't baseball, it wasn't basketball. It's,
Right.
you know, and so we had to do some education about it.
Right.
Because people still from all over the world go to some of the rivers in North Carolina to Whitewater Rapid.
Right.
So there is a little connection there, but yeah, it was a hard sell. But now all those people that
I mean, raising money for movies is difficult.
that's right.
Whitewater
Try to sell
rafting
Whitewater
Yeah,
Center.
Yeah.
And
That's
the,
probably the only thing that makes
worst
that look
part,
easy. Wow.
the worst part was, and I can say this now, but we had hired a person to sort of like work full time for us to really get this. And his name is Jeff Wise, and he's still there. He's still the director.
Right.
And Jeff came to us and said, you know, I need some money to do this. You know, I can't do this for free all the time. So the three of us took out personal loan guarantees at the Bank of America. I didn't tell my wife because I know she would freak out.
Yeah.
So, you know, I took out, I think it was like $25,000 or $50,000 personal line of guarantee from the bank and pledging my house as an asset to it. It's like kept it in a drawer and everything, you know, thank God, worked out. And then I showed her, after it all worked out, I showed her it and I said, yeah, this doesn't affect us anymore. And you know, had a lot of explaining to do after that one. That would have been a tough one, but it worked out. And
Why are we moving?
I know. Why are we? There's someone from the bank here.
So big.
We don't really need this house.
I mean, I'm thinking about an RV trip.
I know. Let's explore the world.
Yeah.
But it worked out, and now it's there's a lot of things going out. It's like most businesses. You start with a business plan or an idea,
Right.
and if it works out, 10 years down the road, you look back at that original plan and it was like, dude, we would have never thought all this other stuff would have happened. And
Right.
sometime you change.
Right.
We were strictly doing a facility for whitewater training and rafting for the U.S. Olympic Committee. Now there's zip lines out there. Now there's bands that play on like Friday night, and there's
Right.
beer busts, and there's trails, and there's biking and hiking, and all that other stuff. We never even thought of that stuff.
Right.
But it all evolved because the original kernel was successful.
That's fantastic. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow. So let's talk about academics and AI. So I mean, and AI with film and media. What are your thoughts on AI?
Well, that's what the strikes are about right now in
Right.
Hollywood.
Right.
It like most things, there's not in my mind, there's not an easy answer to it. People are saying, I created something out of my soul, my spirit, put it there, and now you're going to take that image and duplicate it through a computer, and I'm not going to be compensated for my image, my likeness. That's not right. But then you got the problem, okay, what if you take that image, let's say you, and so now we take that image and we give you brown hair a little, and we change your nose and your ears and your eyes a little. It looks like you, but it's really not you. Do you get compensated for that?
Well, okay.
So there's a lot of nuances there that have not been worked out. The other thing is, I've talked to quite a few people from the writers and the actors that are on strike, and they all agree on two things. One, the strikes will basically end before Christmas. They are all very positive about that. And two, nothing will change.
Right.
The studios will go back
Right.
to not showing what's going on.
Right.
They'll have two books. Their books, they show you as the actor, that
Right.
your movie that was the #1 hit
Didn't
has
make
never
any
made
money.
any money
It's
yet.
still- it's terrible. Right,
It's still
right,
not
right.
making any money.
Right.
And so that's what's frustrating. But AI, to me, and some people in my company have been pushing AI, and I see AI sort of as a tool, not as an end. And I use this example of a Persian rug. Okay, let's say this is a Persian rug. A handmade Persian rug costs more than a machine-made Persian rug. A machine-made Persian rug is almost perfect. It has no flaws.
Right.
It's really tight. The handmade Persian rug sometimes has flaws, doesn't last as long, wears out. So why is that rug more expensive than one you would buy than a machine made? It's because it was made by a human being, and we value the skill set and the artistic ability of humans over the intellectual dots and dashes of a
Right.
computer.
Right.
So I'm still very optimistic about human beings in the creative industry as opposed to machines, in that industry.
Right.
So I'm not that terribly worried about it.
Okay. We've raised a creative child, and you're a creative person, stuff like that. So we'll get to talk about your son in just a minute.
Okay.
But if you're listening to this today, the podcast, and you want to be a creative, you want to be an actor, you want a filmmaker, or a
Right.
script writer, I mean, it can be very frustrating. I mean, how do you get started? What do you do? Any words of wisdom for somebody looking to get started?
Don't listen to people with gray hair.
Okay.
Or, any,
Or
or
no
anyone
hair.
or anyone over 40.
That's right.
Because my son Tyson,
Right.
he was very artistic.
Right.
And that's all he wanted to do was draw.
Right.
And we'd be in church and be drawing. He'd be at school and drawing. We'd get called from his teachers. Your child is disruptive. How is he disruptive? He's drawing, and all the kids want to just see what he's drawing. So my wife had to homeschool him, and And he was very good at drawing, but I'm thinking, because at that time I owned a technology company, so I was
Right.
using the left side of my brain.
Right.
And I'm thinking, this kid's going to be in my basement when he's 40 drawing
Right.
Sonic
Right.
or caricatures at the fair,
Right.
you know?
Right.
And how's he going to earn a living?
Right.
And so, but my wife was the one that was very encouraging
Right.
and said, don't worry about it. It will work out. And it did. And now he's the producer and head creative designer of Sonic the Hedgehog movies. I mean, he was drawing Sonic when he was
This is Sonic.
8 years old. Yeah.
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 Billions of dollars of revenue in these films.
Jim Carrey loves him.
Yes.
Because the original Sonic, there's a great story behind that, but the original Sonic was going to be a bust.
Right.
There were going to be picket lines outside the theater because they didn't like the way Sonic looked.
Right.
And then they hired my son, and he brought in a team, and they
Right.
redid
Right.
the first Sonic, and it became a big hit. And then the second one was an even bigger hit, and now he's in London on Sonic 3 and Sonic 4.
Man, that's exciting. That's
So,
exciting.
you know, we always hear this follow your passion and other stuff, and which is great because life is short and you never know how long we have on this planet. But as I'm going to be teaching these film students at Winthrop, the one thing I want to get across to them is creativity is a skill. You know, it's not necessarily a born trait. You know,
Okay.
I don't think a artist, a musician, or anyone is just born. Very few, maybe a Mozart or something like that, but very few are born geniuses in that artistic field.
Right.
They take hours and hours. I look at Tyson, my son, the hours he spent drawing Sonic, drawing these other things, the hours. You know, when kids were going out to football games and baseball games or whatever, he was drawing. You know,
Right.
but he
Right.
loved that, and he
Right.
didn't feel he was missing anything. So what I want to teach these film students is that, first of all, we all are artists, every one of us. You're an artist, I'm an artist, everyone's an artist, right? If you want to focus on a certain aspect of that art, you've got to develop that talent like Tiger Woods developed the talent for golf.
Right.
You know?
Right.
And that's what's the problem with most wannabe artists. They don't want to put in those hours, those grueling hours of developing their craft. And so what I'm going to tell these students is that, because they want to know how to make a good film. And I can say, okay, if you want to know how to edit a film, light a film, block a film, shoot a scene, blah, 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 I can save you $25,000 on your tuition at Winthrop. Don't do it. Go to YouTube and watch YouTube videos because they'll tell you exactly how to do every one of those things
Right.
by very accomplished people.
Right.
But you have to look at the world as an artist, as a filmmaker, and then you use those tools for that image that you've put into your mind. So it all starts with creativity and then using those tools to create what you have in that mind. It's like if you handed Steven Spielberg your cell phone to make a movie, and you handed me the best cameras, mics, lighting, all the way down, I can tell you who would make the better film. Spielberg on an iPhone,
Right.
as opposed, I had all this great equipment, I had
Right.
everything, and that doesn't
Right.
make creativity.
Right.
Equipment does not make creativity.
That's a good word there,
Creativity
yeah.
is a human trait that
Right.
if you develop it, you can, go long way with it.
Absolutely. So in our podcast, Studying Your Way to Success, one of the things we talk about is setbacks. To my knowledge, I've known anybody who's experienced any level of success without corresponding setbacks. So are there any setbacks you could share with us, and then maybe how it shaped you or what you learned through that setback?
Oh yeah, I've had tons of setbacks. I mean, my setback started early. From I think it was third grade. They wanted to. This is a long time ago, back in the dark ages when I was in
Right.
third grade. But they wanted to hold me back. This is when
Right.
they held students back. So
Right.
your child we don't want to put them in the next grade. So that was going to be a setback. I didn't get held back, but that was a major setback.
Right.
It really didn't teach me much because I really didn't care, because I was never, and as we talked briefly before this, I was never really an academic, which is funny now that I'm teaching at a university level.
Right.
But I don't think I really read an entire book until college.
Right.
You know, when I was in high school, I was a athlete cut up, type of guy. And I never forget my high school counselor, Mr. Twitty, it was his name.
Wow.
He said, because my name is Herbert Hess, and so he called me Herb. He goes, Herb, you have 4 career choices after high school. I go, oh, yeah, really? What are they?
Choices.
This is 1970, right? The war in Vietnam is raging, right? And he goes, here are your 4 career choices, Herb. I go, okay, what are they? Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines. I go, I'm a friggin' pacifist, man. I can't do that.
Yeah.
So that was a setback for me. But then I went to a junior college, and it was even less academically, and got asked to leave. And the only way, because we did some things that were wrong. But the president of the junior college said, listen, I'm going to give you this diploma so you can graduate, but you have to guarantee that you never step foot back on this campus. And if you ever have children, they never come here too. And so I go, sure, okay, give me the diploma. Yeah. So I graduated from St. Petersburg Junior College with a .11 or .0001, went to the University of South Florida. And that's when, because back then, if you fogged up a mirror, you could get into college if you paid for it.
Right.
So I went there, and then I really started saying, okay, Bert, okay, the 70s are over. You need to start thinking about, life and what you want to do and how are you going to do it.
Right.
And so then I just started getting my act together.
Right.
And started studying. I think I'm a little dyslexic or something, because I have to read things over and over and over. A lot of times I just don't grasp them.
Right.
But I graduated with a bachelor's degree in education.
Okay.
With a 4.0 average.
Wow.
I was awarded a scholarship for graduate school.
No way. That's fantastic.
Received a master's degree in education, and then was offered a full ride for a PhD. And I said, man, I'm tired of school.
It's a long way from Army.
I know. Yeah. So I didn't go on for a PhD. But, as we talked about AI, if you would have put from birth to St. Petersburg Junior College into an AI computer and said, what is the worth of this person going to be in society? It would have come back, not much.
Right.
So we're gonna put him over here on the side and really not pay any attention to him.
Right.
He's not really a value to society, And that's one of my problems with AI, because I just don't think I know that we're human beings, and our past does not necessarily predict our future.
Right, for sure.
Because we can change that. We can change that.
Yeah.
Not AI.
Right. That's fantastic. So if you were to go back and talk to your 20-year-old, maybe not so studious self, there may be somebody listening to the show who might resemble that at some level. What advice would you give yourself?
One that I'm happy, I don't know if this is advice, but I'd say, I'm proud of you that I think you're a good person. You don't hurt people, you don't rob people or, that type of thing. I'm glad that you don't take life too seriously. And that was my I still don't take life too seriously. But back then I didn't take it
was even less
at
serious.
All. It was even less serious. But it would be, everything's going to work out. Don't stress over it. It's going to work out.
Right.
I think, like you and I, you were born in America, right?
Right.
I mean, we already won the golden ticket by being born in America.
Right.
I heard a great quote that if tonight you sleep in a bed with sheets, with a roof over your head, and you've drunk clear water and had food, you're in the top 1% of the world. You know? So I don't take things seriously. I try and be grateful for everything.
Gratitude.
That,
Okay.
that's ever happened. And I know that it's not, I don't use the word disabilities, but I know you have some, not even issues, but you know, you've had to overcome some great things, you know, some things.
Right.
And I don't know if you were put into that AI formula.
No, it wouldn't have been a lot
back
coming
then,
out of
they
there,
would
right?
said, this guy, you know, he might become the manager at McDonald's, where this guy, he's not going to go anywhere
They
but
would've-
the fry cook. You know, but look what you've overcome.
Right.
You know, but you overcame it. People helped you along the way.
Sure.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
But without you making that mindset that, you know, I'm going to do this, I'm motivated to do this, you know, it doesn't happen.
No, there's no doubt about that.
Right.
Do you take time? I mean, I know you take time. Everyone does things a little bit differently and process information, make plans, get the clarity. Do you have a process of, you know, here's how I get the clarity, here's how I make plans, here's how I try to take ground, so to speak? Is there a process you like to do with that, or a way to think?
I have found out that as I've sort of been like this a lot in my life. I like quiet. There's just too much noise in the world right now, and so I like quiet. And so when it's quiet, I can think or not think, because I get some of the best ideas when I'm not thinking.
Right.
You know, so I like quiet. I don't mind being alone by myself in a quiet place, or you know, just doing something by myself, quiet. So I just think that the environment we're in right now, we are just bombarded with so much data, information. You know, on my phone, I get a Fox News alert, I get a CNN news alert, I
Right.
get New York Times news alert. You know, I'm not the president of the United States.
Right.
You know, does it really affect me? Do I really need to know
Sure.
every minute
Right.
what's going on in the world?
Right.
You know, no. So I just try and cut those things out that one, I have no control over. You know, I'm sorry that there's a war going on. You know, but I don't have any control over that. So giving me a Fox News alert, you know, or a CNN news alert on how the war is going on, you know, is it something I really need to spend that much time with? I think I need to be aware of it, but,
Right.
you know, I just think we have too much coming at us,
Right.
you know, and we're not comprehending. And that's why I hate that term multitasking.
Right.
Because I think human beings have enough problems doing one thing
Right.
at a time,
Right.
let alone
focus.
right.
Focus.
And I live by this saying is, and I'm going to be teaching this to students. I said, we listen, but do we really hear? We look, but do we really see? And an artist does not just look or listen. They see and they hear. And that's the difference. And you can develop that skill. As, you know, an artist can look at this studio and you and the jacket and everything else and see things that a non-artist would just glance over. Okay, that's a turquoise jacket. Yeah. No, it looks like it was almost handmade. It's got these prints in it and all this other stuff, and it matches the shirt, you know. And so it's just, you know, developing that creative mind, that artist mind, is just paying attention.
Right.
And it doesn't matter if you're a filmmaker or an accountant or an attorney or a businessman, it's paying attention, you know, being in that moment that they say.
Yeah, I read something maybe a month ago, and you may agree with it. It was an interesting thought for me, and it was about a person's ability to set in discomfort, because a lot of times, you know, it's our nature. Something's not going our way, we want to solve it immediately. And they said the greater your ability to set in discomfort and think about something, and not try to have the first response, but a thoughtful response, the greater your productivity and the higher the quality of your resolution. I'm like, that's interesting because so many people are just, fast.
Right.
And with media, I actually went on a media fast for a while. And it was interesting to see. It was so hard at first. And then you're like, I don't miss a lot of the noise.
Right.
And it was fantastic over a period of time.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with that. I think we've moved that even into health in the pharmaceutical industry. You have to take responsibility for your own physical health.
Right.
And I think people nowadays, they want an instant relief from that distress or whatever is causing them. And obviously there's some medication that you should take, but just popping pills because you have it. Right now, I'm talking about why I don't talk to old people because all they do is tell
Here
you
we
their
go. Yeah.
hurts. So there you go. So I woke up and I have tennis elbow somehow.
Right.
And it's very painful.
Right.
Now, and I'm trying therapies, physical therapies.
This is not
on
from
my
playing
own.
tennis, right?
Not from playing tennis. That's the problem. It's like, wait, I didn't even get the joy
Right.
out
Or
of
the
this injury.
exercise,
That's
right, yeah.
Out of this injury. I just woke up.
Right.
And so I'm trying, some yoga exercises and things like that, and putting, salve on it and everything. It seems to be helping a little, but I'm pretty sure if I went to a doctor and told him this, he said, well, we're going to put a shot of cortisone in there.
Right.
And that should relieve it for around 6 months. But that's just relieving the pain. It's
Right.
not treating the symptoms.
Right.
And then walking down the stairs 2 days ago, I stepped wrong and I pulled a calf muscle.
Right.
Right. So now I'm in pain in my calf. I'm in pain in my my elbow. But life is painful.
It is. Yeah.
Physically, spiritually, mentally.
Right.
And we just can't run away from it because we see what happens to human beings when they want to run away from life.
Right.
They get on the street, they start shooting things into their arms and popping pills down their mouth.
Right.
And that's an escapism.
Right. Wow. That's powerful. That's powerful. Why is storytelling important?
To me, it's the oldest way that humans have ever communicated. So in this class again, I'm going to show a picture of cave art, and I said, why did they paint these animals on this cave? You think they were just bored?
Yeah, right. Hey, Ned. Right.
No, it was a story they were telling.
Right.
They were telling a story, and it's called narrative painting. And so that moved into, even in the Middle Ages, in the Renaissance, these pictures that were painted, they're narrative paintings. If you really look at them and study them, like with their creative mind, they will tell a story. And there are stories behind these paintings.
Right.
Where most people go into a museum and they look at a picture and they say, oh, that's pretty. That's a real pretty picture.
Yeah.
Well, does it tell a story? Oh, I don't know. I just sort of looks like nice flowers.
Right.
But there's a story behind that.
Sure.
And so that's the way human beings communicate, through stories. I mean, the whole world is set up on stories. What is the Bible?
It's a story.
It's stories,
Taught in parables, right.
And wars have been started over stories. Dictators, all they do is tell stories about how great life is going to be under them.
Right.
So to me, storytelling is one of the most powerful mediums. And then you combine that with the moving images of a film. Now you've got something that I think can motivate people, inspire people, scare people, whatever it is. But communicating and storytelling to me is a human experience.
That's powerful.
It uses a lot of our senses, our voice, our ears, our eyes. So
you've mentioned a few times about older people and about sore elbow
no,
knees.
I wasn't talking about you.
No, I'm getting a little passive aggressive here now. So
I can handle the pain.
I can handle
the pain.
Yeah. So for me, as you advance in years, you start thinking more about giving back,
Right.
and about making a positive change,
Right.
How do you think about giving back and are being remembered as?
Which is, it's interesting now because there are so many mediums that a person can be remembered through, video, You know, in the past, years ago, your ancestors were really only remembered maybe through some old black and white photographs and letters. You know, now we have, you know, this is what great granddad had for dinner last night. You know, it's on a video.
Right,
you know,
right.
so there's so many ways to be remembered. But you know, the interesting thing is, it is important, I believe, to be remembered, but it's really, how often do you think about Queen Elizabeth since she's died?
Like none.
Like
not. If I see,
she died less than a year ago, right?
Right. Yeah.
Okay, here is one of the most
influential,
famous
70
people
years
in the
of
world.
leadership. Right.
Right. Compared to me, maybe not you, but compared to me, you know,
Yeah.
she knew a lot of people,
Right.
and a lot of people knew her, and she did a lot of great things.
Right.
And who thinks of her now?
Right. Right.
You know, so
It goes back to not taking life too seriously.
right.
And I think that people create a lot of stress that's unnecessary in their lives.
They do because the way you remember me, if I pass away first, and I hope you will remember me, but you might read Bert Hess died. Oh, that's a shame. He was sort of a nice guy. But 3 months from then, you're not going to be thinking about me. And that doesn't mean you didn't like me, you didn't remember me, but life goes on,
Right.
you know? And so I just want to focus not on necessarily how I'm being remembered, but how am I doing this Friday in front of you? Am I being nice to you? Am I being kind to you?
Right.
And that to me, that's more important than after I pass away, you know, how I was remembered.
Yeah, I have an hourglass that I keep on my desk, and I don't think about it all the time. But once in a while, I'll look at it, and I'll actually purposely look at it and think about it. And it's if you walk away from it, at some point, all the sand's on one side,
Right.
and you look at it metaphorically, like the time has been spent.
Right.
You know, what did you do with the time?
What did you? Right.
If you turn it over, you're like, okay, there's time above sand and there's time below sand.
Right.
Sand, and you don't know really in life how much you have above.
That's right.
And most people spend time worrying about
Yeah.
the sand that's already passed through.
That's right.
The hourglass, something they can't
You
change.
can't change that at
And
all. Right.
they're withholding forgiveness or withholding
Mm-hmm.
stress, whatever. They're hanging on to this. And yet what you're saying is focus on the sand that's actively going through
Right.
the hourglass.
Right.
'Cause that's the only thing you have control
and that little narrow thing.
Right.
Don't worry about all the
Right.
sand. You know, thing on that little narrow thing.
Right.
That's the only thing that is worthwhile to focus on.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. That's it. Well, thank you for storytelling,
Oh,
and
thank you.
and thank you for giving back at Winthrop.
Winthrop.
If you want to share another project you're working on, and one of the things I'd be curious is we learned through setbacks, and people always ask people that, but sometimes I say, what have you learned through a success? You know, is there a success you had that you learned from it? And I've actually personally found, and I'll ask your opinion, is success the journey or is it the attainment of it in your view? And how's that different?
Yeah, I think it's the journey, and not the event, because, you know, I was very financially successful when I had an IT company, and I thought, I'm going to be so happy when I can buy a Porsche. So I bought a Porsche because I had the money to buy a Porsche. I was happy for, you know, a week or two, that type of thing. And then the Porsche sort of, well, that's a Porsche.
Right.
So,
Right.
you know, and then I would pass a Lamborghini or
Right.
Maserati
Now
and say,
that's
now
happiness.
that's a car.
Right,
And you're just
right.
driving a stupid Porsche.
Right.
So I think it's the journey that you've got to enjoy the journey more than the end goal. First of all, the end goal might not ever happen.
Right.
You know, so you've got to enjoy it. Going back to my son in drawing, he enjoyed drawing. You know, if he never became the producer and the head creative designer for Sonic the Hedgehog movies, I think he would still be drawing.
Right.
You know,
Sure.
and so you have to enjoy the journey. I think social media does a lot of good things, but also does a lot of bad things. It shows people, you know, it's the highlight reel in people's lives. And so you turn it on and go, well, gee, you know, my friend's in Spain. Why am I not in Spain? You know, my friend's showing me his new car. Why don't I have a new car? You know, we got to get out of judging our lives by someone else's life, because we do not know what's really going on in their lives. So we just have to be grateful for our lives. Yeah.
I had a grandmother who would say, if you knew their problems, you'd gladly keep your own. And that's really true. So you mentioned something else about gratitude, and that seems to be a big part of your life, of being grateful for where you are, what you have, and having perspective that among everyone in the world, you're in pretty good shape. You know.
Oh yeah.
So how does gratitude impact your daily life?
Greatly, because I realize, I mean, the first thing I do when I get up in the morning is I give thanks that I woke up.
Right.
You know, I mean, you know, a lot of people don't wake up. There will be a lot of people that went to bed last night on this earth.
This is it.
That did not wake up this morning.
Right.
So the first thing I do is I'm grateful I woke up.
Right.
You know, and then, you know, I'm grateful for my health, even though I've had one major heart attack. I've got 5 stents. I've got congestive heart failure. I've got heart damage. You know, I got a bad elbow.
Well, forget your I think it's something about your calf too, right?
I shouldn't be grateful for anything here, Eric. I want you to feel sorry for me. You know, but because, again, we live in a country that gives us so much opportunities that if, you know, we should be grateful. Just, you know, forget about the political party or anything like that. We should just be grateful that we're not, you know, speaking German right now, because the World War II could have gone a lot different, you know. So I get up, I'm grateful that I wake up. I'm grateful to be here. You know, I just try and look at you didn't have to invite me to this, you know. I mean, I'm not going to make or break your podcast, you know, but I'm grateful you thought about me and, you know, and invited me here. And so even little things that I just try and be grateful for them, because I know that you can't just take them for granted. You know, you can't really take anything for granted. You know, I sort of live by faith that I just don't take things for granted. You don't want to take people for granted, definitely.
No doubt.
And so I talk to a lot of people just like you do, and I appreciate them talking to me. It might not go anywhere. You know, the deal might not happen or whatever, but, you know, I'm just grateful for them to spend
the
some
opportunity.
time. Yeah, because they didn't have to do that.
Right.
You know.
Right. No doubt about it. Well, thank you for being here today,
Bert.
Bert.
Thank you for inviting me. Yeah.
It's good to have you.
It was fun. It was enjoyed it. Thanks, buddy. Always. Thank you. Thank you.